Okay. We live. We all alive. All right. So, dear viewers,
You know we can never keep track of our saving goals?
did you know we can never track it? All right. Everything seems incredible. Let's continue on. Excuse me. Sorry guys, anything that seems unprofessional, just ignore, so then the whole thing appears professional. There's so much to say, so much to see, so much to do, but only, one true way to be. And so this idea of the commander within, this is something that honestly, I'm not just giving this talk for the universal sector and the human species. I'm giving this talk in case if I have children in the future. So if I have children in the future, I would like for them to hear this idea. That's to that degree I speak. So the commander within, all right. There's some important things I've realized. These are just my realizations. You could see that I'm right or wrong, and I would say best thing is, as Aristotle says, it's the sign of an educated mind to entertain an idea without accepting it. So the idea of the commander within, the idea that you're not just a creature of thought, you're not just your memories, you're not just what you're doing now, you're not just what you have done, you can also be where your attention goes next. So I don't know if everybody in the planet should suddenly be a follower, or everybody should be a commander, if everybody should be an alpha male, if everybody should be a beta male. It's hilarious to me. It's like, look, we're looking at a garden filled with flowers, and we're like, yo, should the flowers look the same? I mean, it doesn't make sense. We should have an artistic approach on the value of reality, meaning that it can have multiple interpretations of value. So the first thing about the idea of command, I would say, is the idea of vision. That means if I was, let's say there was me and a bunch of people, and we were suddenly lost in a forest, or in some sense stuck on an island, I would first just be quiet and listen and see what everybody's vision is. Who is seeing the furthest? Who is seeing things that I cannot see? If I see someone in the moment is seeing things I cannot see, I become an incredible friend and helpful person to that person who sees further. Why? Because it's an advancement to the whole survival of the whole team. Okay, so the concept of command is actually the appreciation of the concept of structure, the appreciation of the power of an efficient hierarchy, a benevolent and compassionate hierarchy, and understanding ultimately life is a dynamic thing, and I think everybody is attracted to people who know where they're going. right? Because it's weird, right? We wake up and our state of mind changes. So many different things happen. One day we wake up, we want to be an astronaut. You know, another day we wake up, we want to, in some sense, you know, be an astronaut of the inner realms, a poet. You know, so in some sense, it's like reality is different. Our emotions come and go. So it's kind of like we're not here to learn and be only one version of ourselves. We are like this, like whole moment of awareness that is witnessing how it's being coordinated in the space-time continuum as an entity. So really what it is you are the most profound audience member of your own performance. And you might not believe it. This is really another way we can create an argument that's saying there's something such as the soul, because when I give these talks and speak, I can hear myself. Do you understand what that means? That means it's as if I am experiencing the idea in my inner realms. I'm also hearing the idea when I'm saying it, and I'm also trying to combine everything and having another thought stream to have the next idea arise, right? So really what it is just setting in motion 3 lines and then being able to look from between them. And in reality, so much of reality is geometric. Like there was a time I was looking at a sunset and I'm like, yo, this is so beautiful. And then the engineer's like, you know, vision in some sense came into me, and I'm like, yo, this sunset is beautiful, but it's just color and shape. Am I thinking color and shape is beautiful? Like, why is color and shape beautiful to me? Why is just like, how can beauty even exist? Do you understand that? Like, I went to a point where I was like, how can a periodic table be beautiful? It's just like, how can stuff be anything else? And then I discovered that it's like when you look at a bird, when you look at a human being, or if you look at even like, I don't know, a lawnmower, it's as if once it's ignited, once it's set into motion, it has a program of expression, an intelligence of sequential different actions to display. Do you know? Now, when I say the commander within, it's because one of the most not challenging, but one of the most fascinating ideas that philosophers have been trying to like people don't understand this. Philosophers are mountain climbers. But they are mountain climbers where the mountains are ideas. And the depth of the idea is how far they have to climb to get to the summit of the idea. Do you know? That means no philosopher ever feels like they know everything. Why? Because it's like a garden. There's so many different things to see, right? It's like we have this like little, what is it? Like this small jar and this couple pound flesh. And this thing is given the task of figuring everything out. So we have to be like, okay, man, you know, we got to pat ourselves on the shoulder and be like, it's okay if you can't figure out everything in existence on the first go. Try again. And what it is, guys, to me, I'll be honest, it's not that I'm like, the intention behind my ego is selfless. Okay? Like there is something, there was a time where I was listening to my own talks and trying to figure out who I am. What I have understood about the notion of command is first you serve, so you get a reality of what the archetypes are. That means you can't command something if you don't know what it is. I would say that's a very important rule. First understand, then act. Okay, and what understanding? Oh my God, phone. And what understanding means that you actually looked at something with your own life force. Because, you know, when I'll tell you that you might not believe it, right? But when I was in middle school, I was a kid that was so lazy, you know, that I didn't have respect for, I didn't even, like, you know what it was? It was kind of like I didn't have respect for anything. Do you know? And even I had respect externally, it was just an act. Do you know? I honestly didn't respect anything when I was younger. And so what happened was I would copy. That means that I remember kids in the class, the teacher was like, the teacher was like, didn't care to teach, and the students were like, okay, just copy each other's answers. And it was so freaking ridiculous because the teacher was on his phone. This was in Iran when I was in middle school. The teacher was on his phone, okay, and the students were just passing one kid's exam paper to each other, and everybody would put the exam paper beside their own exam paper, copy all the answers, give it to the next kid. Do you understand? Right? And it was as if that point I didn't understand the value that I am born into this world with my own unique DNA and own unique mind to actually solve these problems with my own life force. And this is the main description you see right now. People, in some sense, they call it the manosphere, talking about alpha, beta in cultural situations. They don't understand. The alphas of today are the betas of all those ancestors of ours that were kings and queens and in some sense went into battlefields and fearlessly protected their villages. We are nothing compared to them. We are all spoiled compared to the past. So what it means is in some sense realizing that it's no longer about an individual success. And this was very hard for me to understand at first. Why? Because I was like, yo, why shouldn't life be all about me? Why shouldn't why shouldn't I continue my self-obsession of survival and continuity? And then I asked myself, why am I here? And it scared me. It scared me that I had appeared out of nowhere, that I had a nature, that I had a design, that I have a body, that I have desires, that I have emotions, that thoughts come and go. And what is looking at this world the whole time? I finally realized it, and it blew me away. I understood that I was an unknown being, and that is Mr. Within's greatest discovery so far. After 2,000 talks, I can tell you the most advanced state of being is realizing, why are we caring for knowledge? Why are people saying knowledge is power when we're all temporary beings? That means even if you become powerful, you can demonstrate it for a little while. So might as well use it for the species, the victory of the soul of mankind. The armies of advanced human beings that will rise in the future, they will arrive. Do you know? To me, I have this vision. This is literally how, like, I would write share a poetic imagery to like what I did in this lifetime, where it's as if I feel as if like my consciousness in like the time that I'm alive, it's as if I'm holding open Sorry guys. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is I struggled with this sense of worth as an entity in this world, and I automatically was pushed into this state of selfless service. You know why? Because I stopped caring for myself, not for physically, just the idea of me. That means suddenly I was bored with everything. Suddenly nothing had value. And it was as if I was waiting for something and the world was waiting for something. And then I realized I'm not waiting for the world. The world is waiting for me to choose. Because why else would you come to an infinite gallery with infinite artwork to see? Do you see? It's like an all-you-can-see buffet, right? A buffet of perception. And it's as if at some point the intellectual entity is like, oh my God, the world is information. It's filled with information. Everything is formed in so many ways. So what is truth if shapes change? And so this is where the concept of I would say religion got something right. and that truth was inconceivable. This is the secret of this dimension. What that means is that means, think of it this way: the intellect is in the dimension of conception. That which moves the intellect, your spirit poetically, is in some sense, I would say, it still has a duality with itself and truth. So what it is it's kind of like, even though the simulation exists, because the truth exists first and the simulation is of the truth, it's as if the simulation appears true, but it is not, but its geometry is. So it's kind of like we don't have to think what we see is real, but we have to acknowledge that the geometry, the code of it is real, right? Because how was it that Neo suddenly could hold the bullet in the air in the movie Matrix? Why was it that Mr. Anderson for the first time got rejected by the karma of his dimension? Because Neo saw the code, and the code of reality is inconceivable. That's the clue. So dear human beings, you can choose to be a patriot of an ideological system that comes and tells you how to be. You can go like all those people who want to be tutored by the world. Literally, the past is waiting to possess the present. It's hilarious. Do you know? And you know what it is? It's the nature of this world. It wants us to be incredible information processors, to the degree that we have realized we're not the form, that the world is changing within us. For what is the point of the soul? And one day, when the advanced humanity is completely acknowledged, do you know what that means? There will come a moment in history where every time a human being will make eye contact with a human being, another human being, they will smile. Why? Because the world is smiling. Because the civilization has smartened up. Because the civilization has understood, instead of calling it good and evil, we shall see it as efficiency and inefficiency. And so the more efficient decisions, the ratio goes higher, the better the strategies are. It's about the quality of what kind of human being lived on earth. And all those people who are elites, powerful, in dominions of abundance, serve the advanced civilization. You know why? Because you will hold on to your power and then realize suddenly there will come a moment where it all has to be let go of. Nobody leaves here in some sense with full pockets. Do you understand? That means the world takes it all back. You know, I'm in this moment, you know, believing I'm a podcaster on earth, but it's all going to be taken at some point. You know what that means? That means you were never what was rented out. That means it's like a free being, an enlightened being has rented out karma for a little while. The armies of advanced beings in this universal sector, the human species is like cavalry. That means people are like, yo, we need some extraterrestrials to bring us some advanced technology so we stop killing each other. You know, and then there's some people are like, yo, I hope the extraterrestrials don't land until we're proud of our species, until we understand the might and the elegance and all the human beings that have lived so far. It is no longer our life anymore because all our ancestors mattered. Do you know that means I don't understand how people are just honoring their own ancestors. That's the most stupidest thing. You must honor your species, its presence, its existence, and the ideas and the visions of the advanced civilization are the ego of the species, and the spirit of the species are all those that will come and go. We are like endless invisible winds sculpting the perfect civilization in the void. We are the master class species. Do you understand? That means our life is being witnessed, and even if it's not, they're all missing out. Do you know the advanced humanity will open its eyes as if they were never closed? That's what advancement means. You were advanced before you were born. There's many ways to animate. And you know, I was thinking at some point, like for a second I was like, yo man, if I like exit this dimension, if I'm dismissed suddenly, Like, how would I remember this lifetime? Like, would it even be worthy of remembering? Imagine in a lifetime, like, you didn't do anything significant, and you're like, yo, it's like you, your next lifetime, you couldn't even remember that lifetime. It would, like, there was no value to remember, man. You know, it's like Buddhist problems, you know? What I'm saying is, life is not about just what we see ourselves as. It's also about the momentum and how our attention is directing the actions of our moment. Okay? So I was at some point being like, yo, why are human beings killing each other, where if none of them were around, like, everybody would be the last person on earth. Right? I was thinking, like, why are there problems that instantaneously, if the creatures had a different mindset, could have not been there? And do you know what I understand? This is Mr. Within's view so far. The reason people are forgetting the authority of their own true nature in a world that is changing and constantly feeding them artificialness is simply this. You have to reverse engineer. That means you got to find a moment in this lifetime. You got to pause it like a video game. Everything you think everything is, you got to pause it. And you got to try to find the simplest truth of your being, and then you can trust your perception. Because if you don't trust your perception, you're going to jump from archetype to archetype. And if you express that vocally, people are going to be like, that person has a fragmented psyche. Right? Because we don't, to me, like, I have a deeper understanding. So if I see a human being, when I look at the human being, I look at their eyes. And when you look at a human being's eyes, based on this, you might not believe it, but based on the tenseness, how intensely their eyes are, or how their attention is, you can get a sense of what is occurring in their inner realms. You won't understand. There has been moments ever since this is something this is like Mr. Withinian's school of thought. I call it Mr. Within's inner and outer realmism. It's pretty much the philosophy. I was like, all right, I got to create some, something for Mr. Within, And feel free to ask questions. Remember, there are no, how can I tell you? There are no stupid questions, but there is this thing where you gotta first try to answer the question yourself, and then find your greatest answer, and then come and compare your greatest answer to another answer. I understood at some point that it can't be about greed, it can't be about ego, it can't be about hedonism and selfishness, because why the hell are others here? If it was about that, I would have been a solipsist. You wouldn't need others. You just need to be in a private server. Imagine in cyberspace, like a billionaire is like, yo man, what am I doing trying to control the people of the world? Why don't I just go in cyberspace and experience myself as an immortal god, artificial god, where I can control anything? Imagine a series of billionaires lined up for this like virtual reality machine, and in the virtual reality machine you go in there, and for 3 months you can experience being like Napoleon on a battlefield. You could experience like historic virtual reality simulations. You could experience being a king. You could experience being a peasant. You could experience anything, right? And so I'm saying that the wealthy, because they have a greed that cannot be manifested in the outer realms, they're going to use cyberspace. So what this means is, I would say in about 2,000 years, all elitism, political power, and let's say corruption will all move into cyberspace. That means evil will move into cyberspace, because its desire for manifestation and its impatience is going to cause it to go there. Do you understand? The difference between a young soul and an old soul is about how much the person has patience. And this patience means how much you have faith in what you're being before you do anything, really. If I didn't have faith in what I'm being, how would I be able to talk? And I experienced this when I was a kid, guys. I was that quiet kid who, I had to do a PowerPoint presentation on Dante's Inferno. in front of the whole class, and I was like this shy, quiet kid. This was in high school in Canada. And I remember I went in front of the class, and I was using like situational comedy, right? Where the teacher was absent, so some substitute teacher had brought a camera, and I was like that student in front of the camera giving a presentation to this teacher that was sick at home. Okay, this was before like Zoom and all of this. Okay, and so I remember when I was giving the thing, right, I would say a sentence, and then I would get nervous, and then I would go drink a bottle of water. And then after I would drink the bottle of water, I would pause for like 10 seconds and be like, ah. You know? And the class, like, you know, it had a humorous effect. But at the same time, I started explaining the dimensions of Dante's Inferno, and I realized how uncomfortable I was with being an entity in the outer realms. You see, you're going to realize something. All human beings want something better than they have. This. We should make this like the law of ego. The law of ego. Every being, you know, or the ego principle. Every being wants something that's better than what they have, right? And this is what marketing industry companies understand, and it's something even psychologists understand, because a human being is fundamentally alone unless they use their own energy to create something for themselves. So you see, it's as if like when you become a designer, I mean, this is why people are gravitated towards artists. Let me tell you why. Because artists, they go grab empty piece of paper and they draw something. When you draw something, nobody is telling you what to do. Your pure free will is moving the pen on the canvas. You know, or if your writer is writing those images on the paper. Do you understand? Guys, if somebody says in the chat section, why does your sound so different? Guys, because I'm as much as I may come across as a man who has understood certain things in certain dimensions, there's also, they say to be human, to err is to be human. So I'm I guess, a smoky fool simultaneously. But anyways, I've learned that I have to forgive myself so I can present my most advanced self to the future generations. Everybody is living for the future. They just don't know how, so they try to find some strategy. And let me tell you what's going on, right? Something cool is happening, which I honestly need help from other philosophers because I don't know what to do, right? I noticed something living in Canada as a Canadian citizen. First of all, I sent an email to the Prime Minister of Canada. You can do that. Canada's a cool country. And I sent an email saying that, like, what if students could, like, pay off their student debt by teaching instead of, like, physical financial payment? But anyways, I wonder, what is the most conservative individual in the country and what is the most liberal individual in the country? What kind of world can fit them both, right? And I realized that the idea of restructuring the problems of civilization is actually simplifying it and going to the simpler truths of reality. Right? It's the same approach they use in physics. You understand the simple, you can't, like, even if you fail in the complex, you just revert back to the simple you were comfortable with. When I say the commander within, it's because it's a very difficult thing to explain, because to me, what I'm trying to tell you is that we're like a human being in a human archetype that can access dehumanized states of perception. These dehumanized states of perception in the future will be studied and even given classes, right? I don't know. I mean, I'm this person who, I don't know why, I think if there was another parallel universe, right, I could have been in like maybe a professor in university with like a bunch of TAs who were like the early commanders of the advanced civilization or something. But life hasn't taken me on that path. I decided to be a filmmaker. The commander within is just this idea trying to find the right song. Okay, here. Oh, that was perfect. Perfect. This is even more perfect. See, guys, what I'm trying to tell you is that knowledge is understanding. Geometry is we're converting films, inner films, into geometry and symbolism.
When you have your car insurance with a Desjardins agent.
What it is, you know, guys, I was very inspired by the archetype of Rishi Vyasa. Rishi Vyasa is one of the most incredible human beings, and I was blessed to be somehow, my curiosity and mystical research made me like figure out this guy's story. So anybody who looks at Hinduism, there's many notable events, but there's something about this individual named Rishi Vyasa, who, this man was a rishi, is an individual who is free and liberated from, in some sense, the shackles of this realm. So it might be bizarre. Somebody would be like, Mr. Within, what are you saying? You're saying some beings come in this world and they have no karma? And I'll be like, yes. Why? Because they're not here to be a karmic entity, but they're here to be something here, most likely to be a presence here. So Rishi Vyasa, one of these Himalayan yogis that goes and meditates in the mountains, some people called him the incarnation of God in language, okay? And this guy, at the time where people didn't know what books were, he wrote 18 books on leaves back in the day in the mountains in India, okay? These books became the Puranas, which somehow I found and bought. You know, there was a temple beside my house, believe it or not, it had all the books. I was so surprised, you know. It's like, imagine a random Persian guy one day walks into a Vishnu temple and says, hey, can I buy all the Puranas? And they're like, sure. It's like I was the only one it was as if I felt the books were waiting there for me, you know. But anyways, these stories are like written at an earlier time, so it's kind of hard to decode the stories. But the idea was that Rishi Vyasa wrote 18 books on like how to enlighten society and civilization and whatnot, metaphorically. Okay? So after Rishi Vyasa follows his intuition and he's like this, like in this holy state, some like divine state, you know, meditative state, the story goes that Rishi Vyasa felt incomplete. He followed his intuition, he wrote 18 books, and he felt incomplete. Imagine a soul that feels incomplete. I don't know if you've ever felt this, but I have. Okay? So it's a sense of like you doing what you thought was your best and what was your soul's purpose, and realizing that wasn't just it. So after Rishi Vyasa writes these 18 Puranas, the story goes that an angel comes to him. And I think, if I remember correctly, it says this angel comes to him through a human form. That means that's something to explain later, but there's many stories like that. So an angel comes to Rishi Vyasa and tells him, oh Rishi Vyasa, even though you have done a mighty task, a mighty intellectual task, you know, a mighty Raja Yogian service, right, to your reality, but you will not be satisfied until you write about your devotion to truth. And this angel, when he says this to Rishi Vyasa, it was as if like the planets aligned and his hand and the pen already knew where they had to be, and the moment happened as if it had happened many times before. And so Rishi Vyasa begins to write the Bhagavad Gita, which is the story of this archer in a battlefield where suddenly the avatar of God comes to him to guide his spirit in a moment where he is in indecision. And in the Bhagavad Gita, this avatar of God appears and says, Arjuna, I have known you from before. You have forgotten. So imagine you, dear being on earth. The mysteries of your DNA are fascinating, but the mysteries of who you really are, what you really are, how many ways your mind can self-simulate realities, self-simulate the world. So Rishi Vyasa, in his devotion to God, the ultimate thing is that in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, Arjuna says, God, I want to see your true form, something like that, and God reveals his true form. And I remember I opened the Bhagavad Gita randomly, and it was just like the description of it in the book, right? And it's as if what happens is Arjuna gets to see the true, not like I don't know if people have seen that, I don't know what show it was, Love, Sex, and Robots. I think it was Beyond the Aquila Rift. It was as if that Beyond the Aquila Rift moment, we should just create that as a meme in our culture. An Aquila Rift moment. That was an incredible work of art. That episode should be given some next level award. That episode, I like if I suddenly get abundance, I'm gonna go try to make that episode get some Oscar level worthy thing, you know. But anyways, even though that incredible idea in the show, the idea is that God, Krishna, the avatar of God, reveals God's true form, right? And when Krishna sees God's true form, when Arjuna, this archer, sees God's true form, he gets so shocked, and in his story, he gets scared. As a human being, he sees something so dehumanized, where he says, I saw all your eyes in the universe, I saw all your mouths, I saw your and it's Arjuna's freaking out, as if he saw something that was so beyond his dimension that suddenly his soul knew exactly where it was. Do you know? And so it's as if there where constantly Krishna is saying, even though Arjuna, you saw my true form and you were freaked out, But remember, your devotion in the being a resident of Ontario, your devotion in me is in some sense your kind of compass in reality. I think for many religious people, God is really like a compass of their moral nature as entities. One day, whoever you are listening, you will listen and probably laugh like me. There was a day I was smoking a cigarette and just staring outside. And by the way, best time to quit cigarettes is before you ever smoke your first one. I was just staring outside, and I was like, yo, what am I looking at? What am I? What is looking at here? How do I choose a value? And the moment I realize I don't know my value is the proof that I'm not limited to my value as an entity. My brother, I have a twin brother, one night he said the most fascinating thing to me, right? And me and him are both smokers, which is unnecessary, but he told me, it's as if, what if we have come to this world to exactly be in this situation? What if our doubt that we are living a wrong life is the flaw in that everything was right from the beginning? You see, this is where it's the fascination of the idea of the original earth. No. Somebody says survival and greed is why student loans won't be related by teaching. Let me tell you something, guys. Let me tell you. My strategy, one day I'll give a talk on this. I'll probably give a talk on it this week or something. But pretty much in the email I sent, I was like, students go in the educational system, they come out of the educational system, go to a job that may not require this thing they have studied, and then they have to make money to pay back for the thing that they studied that doesn't relate to their job. Okay, potentially. Okay, so if that's the situation, the idea could be that, okay, if the student in the educational system forgets what it learned. So the best way they say you learn something is actually by teaching it. So I'm saying, why instead of like for like law school, the guy giving $100,000 or even more, do you know, instead of giving that much, right, instead the person is like, okay, I'm gonna be like for 10 years a teacher, and once like a month for like, I don't know, for a whole week I'm gonna come and teach. Do you know? And instead of the person owing money to the institution, the person owes teacher, and by being a teacher they get the work experience that they don't have. Do you understand? And at the same time, more smarter people are everywhere, because teaching means you've understood something. How else can you teach it? You know? I don't know, guys. These are strategies. I'm just, you know, a podcaster in the void. You know, that's how I keep myself humble, you know. One day I wake up and I'm like, yo, I'm gonna build an advanced civilization today. And then tomorrow I wake up and I'm like, yo, man. You know, let me just, you know, strategize today, you know. But what it is strategy is really beautiful. If somebody says like in this lifetime I would consider myself a strategist, a designer, in these two dimensions I've seen so much that I can tell you that any human being in this lifetime that has a question about their geometrical existence, I can in some sense speak on that. Plato's world of forms is a proof that there's a parallel universe where everything is geometric. Do you understand what that means? That means there is no subjectification of an object, pure geometrical being. In my inner realms, guys, the type of, I called it in one talk, living geometry, automatic geometry. You know, that means it was like, I was like, you know, I'm that person who like, you know, studied a little of psychology. Then when I looked at my own mind, I'm like, okay, let me see what patterns I can recognize. Let me tell you what it is, guys. Somebody says in the chat section, but some like conflict and oppression. Oh man, I know. And it's not like some. It's something that can activate. So you see, this creature has a potential to be incredibly evil, and it has a potential to be incredibly nice and smart. Okay, benevolent and smart. So the reason this creature becomes evil is because it interprets something as evil. Right? And it may be justified or it may be unjustified. You know, imagine there's a child, you know, that's just walking, and some kid in the playground comes and pushes this kid for no reason. And the kid falls down, and suddenly there's this rage. Like, so suddenly there's this feeling like, what has moved me outside? That's not my will. So hatred arises actually when you move something, when some being feels like their will is being moved not from themselves. But that can also be by your ignorance of not realizing what you are, that you are allowing the outer realms to move your inner realms. You know, why did Aristotle say it's the sign of an educated mind to entertain an idea without accepting it? Why are we all here now? Let me tell you why. To realize the dimensions that we have access to and to advance in those dimensions. This is the game. Humanity is a chess game. I forgot. I mean, I got to go back to the commander idea. So if somebody says, Mr. Within, do you feel you're a commander? I would say it this way. I feel my mind is a commander of my body, and I feel that okay, I see it this way. I see it this is really like what the subjective vehicle, the subjective Iron Man suit I'm in right now. Okay, so I'm seeing reality, and I see a visible dimension, an invisible dimension, and an inconceivable dimension. My body is the visible dimension. My inner realms, my mind is the invisible dimension. My soul is the unknown viewing force that is the inconceivable dimension. Because what is inconceivable to the one that is looking is the one looking. The Upanishads say the seer of the seen is unseen. This is one of the most profound clues when it comes to the existential mystery of our nature. And so when I say why are we all here, it's not I'm saying you got to just listen to one guy's voice. I'm saying why are you here? Ask this question. You know, or there was a moment where I was alone and I was in nature and I just looked at the sky and I shouted and I said, world, why am I here? Why? Like, what's the point? What's the point of 4.5 billion years of evolution just so you could notice your suffering, just so you could notice your pain, just so you could complain about the infinite imperfections of reality? And suddenly there comes this moment where you realize you did not create the outer realms. And then you feel humility. Then you feel you were a servant of reality. That means if somebody says, Mr. Within, are you a prophet? I would say no. I would say I'm a pilot. And a pilot is an act of service to reality, to the minds in the realm. You know, sometimes I humorously, in my mind, you know, in the inner realms, fictionally time travels, right? And so what I mean by this is sometimes I've wondered if I was, let's say I was in this time machine bus and somebody pushed me off this time machine bus and I had to fall back into the past. I would think that I would fall into that moment where I would probably be like some sort of carpenter, you know, or some sort of like blacksmith, I think. I'd probably be a blacksmith, right? But I'd also probably be the best friend of the best childhood friend of like the, you know, prince of the kingdom, do you know? And I'd be like one day in my blacksmith shop, like trying to craft the most next level sword, and you know, it's as if like, you know, the king has come to, you know, speak to his blacksmith friend, you know. Do you see how the inner realms move? By the way, guys, people don't know this. I have created a lot of stories. I'm a writer. You know, I have a hidden writer's life that began from 2011 and never stopped. 2012, 13. There was a moment there I had a dream and everything changed. If I was suddenly thrown out of that bus in the future, I think in the year maybe like 333, I might suddenly be like that guy who comes and is trying to recruit the first human pilots of interstellar spacecraft. Like I could envision that. But these are just simulations, guys, because if I were to tell you what I have understood about how I'm being a being, you'll be shocked, because I was shocked to realize it has nothing to do with my ideas. The ideas may change the energy through what your attention finds to engage in this realm. But the notion is the commander within is you serve yourself by trusting your world and trusting just why you're here. And at some point you will understand that the follower mindset is a permission-bound mindset. So what it means is really what it is, guys. It's hilarious. Creatures are being born on this planet. Subjectively, they have a spectrum of hierarchy of perfection and imperfection. Until the end of their life, they're trying to be perfect in a world where everything is changing. So what it means is the creature thinks it's incomplete, and the whole lifetime it's trying to complete itself. Right? The advanced civilization is a completely different vibe. It's you're already completed. It's post-truth. It's post-peace. It's post-love. It's post-enlightenment. That's the advanced civilization. It's the work of those who understand that the value of their individualism is in the value of their world. That means the world is waiting to see your most advanced self, just like you are. And your most advanced self has to come with the building of your own life force, because human souls have a lion nature. We have a lionization in us. And people are going to be like, Mr. Within, what do you mean lionization? You know, and I'll be like, I'll tell you why. The coyotes go eat whatever like leftover carcass of a dead animal there is, but the lion has to go hunt the animal itself, and then it's convinced. It trusts its own life. The alpha wolf trusts its own reality, and the other wolves trust it. So what it is the difference between being advanced on Earth and not being advanced is simply realizing that, do you trust the force and power and unique DNA that you are? Have you come to that point yet where there are no issues with being a self in a world? Now we're trying to be like, okay, how would a species function in a world? Do you understand? In order to be ahead of our time, we have to be timeless. So we must go as far as we can. So this is my strategy. I don't know if it's the best strategy, but whatever art form you practice, like if you're an artist, try to wonder about, this is the idea. Don't try to be a step ahead. Don't try to be 2 steps ahead. You're going to get bored. Try to be as far steps as possible you can, so when you fail, you are so far ahead than you could have ever been when you were 2 steps ahead. Everybody has an ability to realize that, sure, if you have a religious context, you might feel like your soul has sinned and that's why you're in this plane of existence, right? But I'm saying pretty much this is my view. Before I learned language, what was I? I was a moment of being. So everybody is a moment of being when they're a child. Then at some point, it's like you log into your personality. It's strange, but it happens suddenly. Psychologists say by the age 11, 12, I think, or sorry, 11 to 14, something by that age, the child is still, like, it still doesn't trust being an individual yet completely, right? But that's when the brain's like, okay, like it's starting to move in the Iron Man suit of itself. Now, when we realize that we are not just a human, like, see, we say we are a human being, the human part has shape. The being part could be how the soul is incarnating through space before matter. You know, to be honest, I'm a person who realized what was missing from my life was not just the purpose, but was of honor, okay? And the commander within arises. You don't understand the power of honesty and the power of goodwill. Just good intent. That means that even if you see someone and they're being rude, you just act like you're untouchably good, right? They're going to suddenly shift. Do you know? The idea of command is that why is it that we feel comfortable placing a cup in a cupboard wherever we want, and we don't think we're an arrogant, egotistical a-hole when we put a cup in a cupboard, but when we tell somebody to, like, yo, can you go do this job, right? The person in some sense, yo, you fucking tyrant, you know. So what it is I'm trying to tell you that sometimes what you find yourself incapable in a complex dimension, you're actually capable in a simpler one. So you got to go fractally reverse engineer to how you're capable doing something in a simpler dimension, and then train. Okay, let me tell you this hilarious thing, right? I'm not much of a gamer, right? But there was a time where I would play this online video game, multiplayer online video game called League of Legends, okay? And in this game, I had no idea how to do this. It was like just foolishness, right? I was just like moving like a fool, like as if like I felt like it's like, yo, am I older than I think? Like, why can't I, like, you know, function in this game properly, right? Not function in this game properly, but why can't I win, right? That, like, why can't I get to the outcome? Then I began to realize there's this idea called a build. That means the strategy, like the item set, the tactics. Then there's the macro view, where you got to wonder about, okay, what is happening on the whole game, not just what's happening in front of you in the game. Do you understand? So then I understood. Then I went, and in order to, like, just to figure it, it was like a puzzle for me. So the way I found out the puzzle, where I went and saw videos online of how the most advanced people in the field were playing the game, and I was like, yo, what they're doing makes more sense than my random, like, emotional thinking this is the better thing to do. Do you understand? So I realized that there was a sort of strategy there, right? A specific strategy was required, just like a specific key is required to open a specific door. Sometimes to get to a specific outcome, we require a specific maneuver, specific vision. Sometimes I wonder, do I have fear, or does fear have me? Am I in a world, or is there a world within my experience? I'm gonna bring the notepad, guys. I think it's better. I don't know why I am so drawn to communicating. Sorry, guys, I need a quick intermission. Okay, guys. Oh my God. There's much to say, but not much of it can be said. Okay. By the way, guys, take a moment to check out the membership and become a member if you haven't. I'd appreciate that. All right. So let's get into it. First rule, always have courage. Without this font, I don't think I would have been a writer, to be honest. Okay, so the commander within, and then authorities rule. What does a commander mean? So, commander, a person in authority. The officer in charge of a division, district, precinct, or squad, a member of a higher class in some orders of knighthood. And there's something called commandership. Which in the future will be an advanced spacecraft. That means if I own a spacecraft in the future, I'm going to call it commandership. Okay, so someone who exerts authority in accordance to how their vision is the greatest among the rest. This is very important. Within, what does that mean? Or let's come here and talk about authority. What is authority? Authority means the reality to follow. Simply it. Authority means contextual control. So everybody's living in human civilization. It took us like billions of years to be civilized creatures, to be capable of acknowledging laws. If we break laws, do you understand? If we like act like a creature that should be living in the forest, it doesn't make sense to be in civilization, so there's the consequence, right? So the authority is in the context, in the space. So I'll give you an example. If you go into like, you know, someone's restaurant, right, and you complain, yeah, I don't like this food, man, and the guy's like, get out of my restaurant. Do you see? That's a moment where authority becomes the reality that the whole moment follows. This is an incredible definition of it. The reality that the whole moment follows. Or active creature agents follow. Because if you're a non-dualistic being, there's no such thing as a commander. If you're an infinite being, there's nothing to command. If you are a dualistic being, the concept of a commander exists, and the ultimate commander in duality is actually, even though they say God is singular, but the singular is still sort of conceptual through a sort of reverse of conception. So they say God is inconceivable. The most remarkable thing about monotheistic religion is just the idea of the inconceivable and the idea of the singular. And when these two ideas are infused as an original necessity to the world story, religion is really remarkable. It's like, to me, I don't, there was a time where I was like, yo, is that person's like this, like that person's like that idea, that person's that idea, and then I was like, no. Everybody's in a changing world. That means every day we wake up different, new self because of new experience, and at the same time, because you're a new self, so a new world. So your beliefs are not the same. This is why faith is not beyond belief. Like, it's important to believe, but belief is not faith, because faith needs no condition. Faith is like literally trusting the inconceivable, right? But belief is requiring a sequential, conceptual, explanation or something. Let me tell you, the human being has had an incredible history of believing in objects, believing in subjects, believing in emotions, believing in what's outside of itself, what's within itself, believing in so many things, acting powerless, powerful. Like, I thought for a second, I thought to myself, how many lifetimes, if like somebody was a Buddhist, how many lifetimes would it take to experience all human attributes, or all human, let's say, themes? And let's say in a billion lifetimes it was possible or something. So imagine in a billion lifetimes, somebody experienced all human attributes and you had seen everything. Like you had experienced yourself as, this is going, Buddhist view of what the being is a transmigratory soul. So it is really a transcendental contextual narrative in Buddhist tradition, the Buddhist view. But there was the idea of freedom. That was really what was remarkable. People don't understand the idea of freedom has been one of the most purifying forces in the human mind. But freedom is also difficult. You know, it's like, imagine there was a kind species, like 50% of the species was kind, 50% of a species in a parallel universe of Earth was cruel. And imagine the cruel were like, yo, let's get rid of the kind people. And the kind people were like, yo, we're too kind. We don't use violence. We're not going to fight back. And the kind people defended themselves until they were all like slowly disappearing. And then suddenly one kind person was like, yo, guys, why are we being kind to cruelty when cruelty is destroying us? Do you know? And then suddenly the good guys began to realize that it's not about it's like they can fight back cruelty without wanting to destroy it. Like, it's okay to value. Do you understand? It's like you gotta value yourself to be capable to see how the other can value you as a self. And if you don't like meditation, like, go get a sketchbook and journal in a sketchbook. Because sometimes you might want to draw symbols in your dreams or visions and whatnot. I'm someone who in this lifetime I've written so much that I gotta go, like, you know, when I get old, plant like ridiculous amount of trees. I don't know what it is, but there's something incredibly serene about how when the human being accepts what it is, then it is freed from judgment. And accepting what you are doesn't mean accepting your past. It means at some point what is appearing to us as free will, once it makes a decision, then it's not bothered. Do you know? The thing I was trying to get to, as if how would I remember this lifetime? I decided that I was a writer this lifetime. Do you know? Ultimately, that's where my heart has been. Any moment in this life where I have felt like I've experienced something I can't share with anyone else, it was just the piece of paper and the pen, and for a moment I felt as if, like, you know, at the edge of my insanity, do you know, I had a relationship with the outer realms, you know. And when I say edge of insanity, I mean, you see, insanity is, you see, it's the fragmentation of self. And when a human being says, yo, I'm having a spiritual experience, they're pretty much saying that there is an event occurring within my experience that is occurring only within my experience, not in the other people's experience, right? So the person in that moment, usually what back in the day they would do is just sit down and meditate and try to contemplate, okay, it's not just how my body moved throughout the day, how did my attention maneuver from the beginning of the day, right? And the attention is to go to a sense of presence, because this is something where, you know, when I started meditating, in 2013, I think I broke the record of being the most Tibetan Buddhist Persian guy ever. You know, I was dressed like a Persian guy, but I had Tibetan Buddhist beads, you know, these traditional Tibetan Buddhist beads. Where in Canada, I would go to different parks that had like streams and rivers, and I would put the beads in the moving water, you know. And the poet Rumi says, I've lived on the edge of insanity, wanting to know reasons, knocking on a door. The door opens, I have been knocking from the inside. He says that when a human being actually cares to figure out what the world is, existence is so bizarre and meaningless that the human being realizes the species had to lie to itself. The white lie. You know, in philosophy, in what do they call it? Like Plato's white lie. It's like the illusion we had to go hide in like a cave because we weren't ready to truly be in an unknown world. But now human knowledge has had so many repetitions that we're at a point where we can actually like create advanced teams on Earth studying the unknown, and eventually, like, can you imagine like 8 billion human beings trying to build an advanced civilization? It's like I've envisioned it. It starts with the songs of the advanced civilization. Suddenly children will be born where they will be like, what does my species deserve? And then they'll see why I'm saying the advanced civilization. You know, people think the future is going to be corrupt and evil. I'm going to tell you, the future is going to be so hilariously kind and benevolent. You know why? Because we're going to realize what an incredible opportunity it is to be conscious in existence. You know, sometimes, you know, people celebrate their birthdays. You know, there was a time where I was like, maybe I should stop celebrating my birthday. You know, and I was like, okay, what am I celebrating? I'm celebrating the day that I didn't exist and then I suddenly existed, you know? And then I understand, like, you're celebrating your journey, how many laps around the sun you've gone, you know, gone around. But it's as if at some point the person's like, yo, everybody's energy. You know, somebody in the chat section was even saying it, energy. Yeah, of course, everything's energy, right? But it's our decisions and our will. And so every person is comfortable commanding their body. But why is it that when it comes to commanding like something beyond themselves, they feel like powerless? Now, let me tell you why. Because if you don't know your strength and you try something beyond your strength, that's the fool's error. I've experienced this. There was a time where I was sitting on a river with my phone in my hand and I was recording a talk, and I suddenly reached the idea where I was about to say it, and in my inner realms, literally like a force field, like, do you know, it was as if like this, I felt like my inner realms was telling me, you're not authorized, you can't talk about this, right? And literally like a pilot, I shifted direction and started talking about something else. You know? So, what is within you, okay, suggesting that the outer realms is simultaneously means at the same time, simultaneously at the same moment, simultaneously being an inner event is being an inner event. And if the human being can't discriminate, dear humanity, I believe that we deserve such incredible advancement that somebody once I don't get a lot of comments, but sometimes when I get comments, they're incredible, right? And somebody had written a comment and was saying, Mr. Within, talk about, like, you know, how there's psychological problems all over the planet. And I was like, man, you know, it's like if it's like my strategy that I've said repeatedly in these talks, right, has been that if the human being can discriminate between the inner realms and outer realms, it can become such an advanced being and such a patient enough being to understand the situation that it would be like, how would I say it? Incredible. I'm going to share a story my brother shared with me. Anyways, long story short, my brother went to a university that was in a town that was, you know, it was like a 4-hour drive from where my family lived at the time in Canada. And so my brother said when he was in this, accommodation setting, right? Everybody was like partying and whatnot, and there was a guy that was, his mind was so savage, right? That means even as like men chilling with each other, even though there's a sort of sense of power and a coolness about like strength and all that, but it was as if this guy had this strange savageness. Do you know what I'm saying? That means it was like his mind was open to that which was a little fucked up, right, and unnecessary, right? Sometimes what leads to an evil action was an attention that was unnecessarily pointed to somewhere that was unnecessary to be pointed to. So my brother said he was just like, in this party setting, and it was like him and his friends, and there was this one person that was so savage, his mind, and he was saying something about how he wanted to respond to this girl, and his approach was so savage. And my brother, at the moment, like, it's a party, and so of course, the atmosphere and the vibes are different, and so my brother tells the guy one word in the moment, and there was a bit of intoxication in the moment, and he tells the guy, "Hey man, use diplomacy." And the way my brother was explaining it to me was so hilarious, because he said it was as if this guy's brain had never understood that word, right? And then my brother says, the guy says, "Diplomacy. Yeah, I like that. Diplomacy." And my brother was like, and I just looked at him, I'm like, yo man, you just advanced this guy's mind with one word. Like, it was so incredible to me, right? And that person understood that, yo, it's not just the way I've been conditioned to respond, there's another angle. And that's what I'm saying in the Mr. Within talks. Just like you can look at an object from different angles, you can look at a subject from different angles. That's called philosophy, dear viewers. Or better yet, the philosophical urge that is within all of us are, because we're an inquisitive creature. How can you not be a philosopher when the world is unknown variables in the world? Anybody who truly loves the world ends up becoming a philosopher of its future. There will be incredible futurist, advanced communicator and futurist associations in the future. One thing that if people contribute to this project, Mr. Within project, people don't understand. It's as if my main aim is to try to build the most advanced space, research institute, the most advanced conversations. Like, you don't understand. It's like there's something in this world that it's like the greater ability of the human being to realize that it has like around 30 years to completely understand the user of technology before the technology has a potential to interfere with human will, whether directly or indirectly. Indirectly meaning like super intelligent computers become the greater species, the intelligent entity becomes like we created an alien superior to us, right? And then the other view is, in some sense, I don't know, with the mellowness of this song, I could just say like, I'm just saying, I was just someone who felt like I was exiled from my outer realms as a kid. Okay, then I understood this idea of service, selfless service, because in selfless service you get to learn from all the senses of self in the moment, not just your own. But if you're selfish, you just want everything to be in your own reality. If something is outside of your reality, you either leave or you try to change the moment, right? Back in the day, the school of Athens was this idea sorry guys, hold on. To finalize this episode, guys, sorry I'm stalling. Okay, and if the human being can't discriminate between that which is an inner and outer event, it will behave strange because it will appear inconsiderate of its outer realm. So see, there is no such thing as weird people or not weird people. It's just human beings that care to behave in a certain way and not behave in a certain way. And what they don't tell you is that to be a civilized human being is a conscious effort. That means, I don't know if you've noticed, but it takes energy to be a human being. You think these talks, like sometimes I've realized something, that when I enter a playful state, inner rhythm in my inner realms, then it becomes a sort of vibe where I can just like, I don't think about time, I don't think about tiredness or energy, and just the fascination of the idea is just, it's like I'm more interested to see where the idea goes than to, notice how tired I am, for example. So when I say the commander within means that, everybody in their life, if you look at it, right, there was this show Attack on Titan, okay, where there was this character, this girl named Mikasa, and this girl was in the story is this next level warrior, but when she's young, she's in this life and death scenario, and she has to save someone, and that moment she realizes like she has to kill someone, and she suddenly remembers her childhood when she was in a garden and a mantis killed a butterfly or something. And suddenly everything, she saw all the cruelty in the world, and suddenly she found a strength in her body, and from the fear of paralysis, she in some sense jumped and acted in such an instantaneous, fierce way where she in the story she says she found complete control of her body because she understood the truth about the nature of the world, not just about who she was, Command. When I look at life, everything is under some sort of command. You look at people's clothing, the way they're dressed, it's as if their appearance is under their command. You look at how people talk, their words are under their command. You see how people move, their bodies under their command. You see how people react, their consciousness is under their command. So technically, in our inner realms, we're all commanders of what we see before free will is a decision. Right? So everybody has an experience, so we shouldn't think of commander being is that some sort of archetype we all have to salute to? And I'll be not per se, it's more like this view that the things that we thought were human roles and professions end up in an advanced civilization being rhythms of the world. So what it is in the future, mankind is actually what is an individualistic archetype in the future is going to become a collective rhythm, right? And so I am just, I hope in this lifetime I find I'm trying to create this headquarters where the most advanced, most incredible philosophers in the world come and in some sense debate. So I'm not saying that, I remember when I was a kid, I watched the Godfather movie. And I remember my cousin was so into it too, my brother too. We all watched The Godfather, both movies back to back, right? Even though there's three, but we saw both back to back, and my cousin was telling us about their, just building it up, right? And I remember after we saw The Godfather, we all went outside and we were quiet, and we all had this attitude show me respect, right? So it's we saw a character we liked and we tried to embody it, we tried to become it, but then the person realizes it's not you can become it, right? That's the cool thing about life. You're here to be something that nobody else can be. This is why you can't learn it from anybody else. We are going to the, I declared it in 2020. We have entered the place, and it's as if all those, all the genius that is hiding, you know, under the veil of shyness, you know, or hiding in the shadows of civilization, they're going to be released. You see, there are not just there is a world in front of our eyes where we're all in, but behind our eyes, there's a world, and that world has a karmic force. But its karmic force is in how it's influencing your direction. So anyways, I kind of letter link the words, but sure. So you can even call it like outer realms. Term it like this. In contrast to inner realms. Guys, this letter linking thing, I coined it. Like it's one of those things I've designed, kind of one of Mr. Within's contributions to the history of literature. The concepts we have in literature. So anyways, so what I'm trying to say is not for the person to be like, you know, I'm not telling you to go like a wolf, like piss out a territory and try to like claim your dominance. What I'm trying to say is that you gotta just pause whoever you are, just look at this world again, and be like, okay, it makes sense that I function through the most energy efficient way, which is honesty. Because people, what they don't tell you about lying is that anytime you lie, you're creating a simulation of an extra version of yourself, which you have to constantly maintain. So a person who lies a lot, like they're probably bored and their mind has to be completely different people. And the reason lying is unhealthy is because lying fragments your psyche. So you become comfortable being different. Being different, not different, being different. You become comfortable not being yourself. Okay. There's so much to learn from. You know, there's never a moment. It's like an endless mountain, and there's nobody who can suddenly be like, I got to the summit, and we'll be like, yeah, man, but there's people ahead of you still climbing. You know? It's like you thought it was the summit. You know. I just realized at some point there's a presence to reality that is just beyond our ideological acceptance of it. I mean, it's obvious. So anyways, guys, thank you for listening, and do not fear command. And if you want to be a commander in this world, go serve. I don't mean go serve in the military, you know. I'm someone who's, because I'm thinking ahead of time, I'm not really satisfied with everything that's going on now. But what it is what I'm trying to tell you is that I want you to, just like the anime Dragon Ball Z, where the Goku came from a warrior species, the human being comes from a designer species. And I want you to observe the design of reality contextually, conceptually, and command. The best way to command is through worthiness and through win-win victory. Do you understand what I'm saying? That means if you don't have the victory of the whole moment in mind, what's the point of commanding the moment? You know? So this is very important. That means it's like PE. They don't do this, but they should have a benevolence check of leaders. Political leaders. Can you imagine? Can you imagine, like, politicians? They're like, yo man, speak about how kind you've been, right? Like honestly, the kind things you've done. Explain how kind you're gonna be. Explain, like, what's the point of you being a human being that everybody's looking at. Do you understand? Like they just acknowledge political dimensions. They don't acknowledge the psychological dimensions that are also necessary, right? And I would say it is thanks to recent political events that the human species is learning from its mistakes. You see, the cool thing about advancement is that, and they even say this, it's like what makes a person really smart is the person that learns from their mistake. So it never repeats again, so they have elevated to a higher level, But the higher and lower is the mind's force. So at some point you got to wonder about what kind of being you are, or how you're accepting yourself as a concept in a context, you know. So the command and all of that is not, I'm not telling you just be an ego. I'm telling you wonder what sort of world your most advanced self would be in, and then wonder with that knowing, inner knowing, how would the outer realms move. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. Much blessings and namaste. Share, subscribe, comment, and like. And I guess, you know, one thing I gotta say about authority's role. Somebody, imagine, is born in it like a prince, and the guy doesn't know how to be a king, right? And the prince is like, man, like I wish, like I wasn't, you know, I wish I had an older brother, right? And so this prince wants to go and, I don't know, be like a bard or something, or be like a rock star, you know. And so the father's like, no, you got to be a king, son, you know. And the son's like, man, I just want to like sing, you know. I just want to like, you know, dance on stage, rock it out, you know. But imagine that person suddenly realizes that he can implement, he can use like the same way that his soul would animate in the geometry of that moment can be applied to this moment. So the person can become a rock star king. You see what I'm saying? The infusion of the archetypes, the potential of the future, and in it being infused with the knowledge of your past. The memories. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Rise, mankind, rise. Much blessings and namaste.